Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to be walking step by step through a true crime investigation that bridges the gap between a chilling, decades-old cold case and the absolute cutting edge of modern technology. We're looking at a tragedy that literally haunted a community for 19 years. It left a grieving family completely without answers and investigators with a trail that had gone totally cold. But, as we're going to see, the evolution of artificial intelligence has completely rewritten the ending of this story. It's a truly fascinating look at how the darkest secrets of the past can be brought to light by the tools of the future. Let's get right into it. To really understand how massive this breakthrough is, we first have to understand the heartbreak at the center of it all. The year is 2006. It's February, in Anshal town, over in Kerala's Kollam district. A woman named Santama is simply returning home. She'd just been out doing some routine official work at the local panchayat office. But what she walked into, well, it was an absolute nightmare. She discovered her daughter, Ranjini, lying there in a pool of blood. And tragically, Ranjini wasn't alone. Alongside her were her infant twin daughters. They were just 17 days old. The throats of all three had been slit. It was a brutal, incredibly targeted, and just devastating crime that instantly sent shockwaves through the entire region.
Okay, let's dive into this and look at the origins of this tragedy. To find the perpetrators of such a horrific act, investigators naturally started looking for a motive. They found that Ranjini had been in a relationship with a man from her own village, a guy named Divil Kumar. But when Ranjini got pregnant, Divil completely changed his tune. He entirely distanced himself. And he didn't just break up with her, he actually packed up and relocated all the way across the country to a military base in Pathankot, where he served in the army. But Ranjini, she wasn't about to let him walk away from his responsibilities. She took a really courageous step. She went straight to the State Women's Commission and managed to secure a formal order, one that compelled Divil to take a DNA test to prove he was the father of those twins. This pursuit of the truth, her demand for accountability, that was the exact catalyst that made her a target. That demand for a paternity test triggered a seriously chilling deception. So you have Divil, the fleeing father, hiding out at his army post up in Pathankot. Meanwhile, he's got a co-conspirator, his former army colleague, Rajesh. And Rajesh meticulously infiltrates Ranjini's life. He doesn't just show up in Kerala out of nowhere, he actually poses as this supportive, caring friend, introducing himself to the family under a completely fake name, Anil Kumar. So while Ranjini thinks she finally has an ally during a really tough time, Rajesh and Divil are secretly conspiring to murder her. It was actually Rajesh who manipulated the whole situation on that fatal day. He's the one who persuaded Ranjini's mother, Santama, to leave the house to visit the panchayat office. He intentionally isolated Ranjini and those newborns, setting the stage for the unthinkable.
Immediately following the murders, the Kerala police launch a massive investigation, and they quickly zero in on Divil and Rajesh. Why? Because right there at the crime scene, police found a critical piece of evidence, the registration number of a two-wheeler. And that specific clue pointed them directly back toward that military camp in Pathankot. So authorities move fast. They follow the trail all the way to the base, but by the time they get there, nothing. The suspects were completely gone. Divil and Rajesh had basically vanished into thin air. The trail went ice cold. You have to remember, these weren't just your everyday run-of-the-mill fugitives. They were trained military personnel. They knew exactly how to evade capture, and the police were just entirely unable to locate them.
So how do you track down killers who have completely vanished for nearly 2 decades? I mean, really think about that. They didn't leave a forwarding address, they had the military training to stay off the grid, they knew how to disappear. For the investigators, and obviously, most importantly for Santama and her grieving family, this huge, heavy question just hung in the air year after painful year. Traditional detective work had hit an absolute brick wall. The suspects were essentially ghosts. Let's move to and see how this builds, because tracing this timeline reveals just a staggering wait for justice. January 2006, those beautiful twin girls are born. Just a month later, February, the triple murder happens, and the suspects disappear, and then nothing. For years, then a decade, then almost 2 decades pass. I mean, just imagine being Santama, waking up every single day for 19 years, knowing the men who took your daughter and your granddaughters are just out there, living their lives. But notice that massive gap there between 2006 and 2023. That is the year the Technical Intelligence Wing of the Kerala Police decides to officially reopen the case, and by January 2025, arrests are finally made. What actually happened in that tight window between 2023 and 2025? Well, that changed absolutely everything. That massive change was the introduction of a completely new kind of investigator to the team, artificial intelligence. In 2023, the Kerala Police Technical Intelligence Wing decided they were going to look at this cold case through a totally new lens. They realized that, sure, the suspects had aged, they'd undoubtedly changed their appearances, maybe grew facial hair or gained weight, but the fundamental geometry of their faces, the exact distance between their eyes, the precise contours of their bone structure, those fixed proportions, all of that could be mathematically mapped and tracked. This was a massive paradigm shift in their strategy. They were taking a file that had literally been gathering dust and feeding the tiny bits of data they had into highly advanced AI systems.
So here is the exact step-by-step process of how they pulled this off. Step 1. The police take the old, probably blurry, super low-resolution photographs they had of the two suspects from way back in 2006, and they use software to enhance them. Then step 2, and this is really where the magic happens, they apply AI age progression algorithms to those enhanced photos. They're effectively asking the computer to calculate and generate a highly educated estimation of how those specific faces would naturally age over 19 years. The AI accounts for wrinkles, weight changes, facial sagging, all based on those underlying unchangeable facial landmarks. Finally, step 3. Once the AI generates these hypothetical modern-day portraits of DeVille and Rajesh, investigators basically deploy them like a digital dragnet. They start cross-referencing those simulated faces against massive databases of modern photographs that are just sitting right there in the public domain on social media.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that the algorithm actually flagged a hit with a staggering 90% mathematical certainty. After tirelessly sifting through absolute mountains of social media data, the system honed in on one specific wedding photograph found online. The AI analyzed the face of a guest in that wedding photo and determined it bore a 90% similarity to the age-progressed, generated image of the suspect, Rajesh. I mean, talk about a needle in a haystack. Out of the millions and millions of photos floating around on the internet, this one single wedding picture, mathematically linked by an AI to a 19-year-old mugshot, completely blew this cold case wide open.
That 90% match led investigators straight to Puducherry, and what they found exposed a truly staggering double life. These fugitive army personnel, the men who committed a brutal triple murder and fled their military posts, had completely erased their pasts. They totally reinvented themselves, fabricating entirely new identities from scratch. For the last 2 decades, they'd been living peacefully as Vishnu and Praveen Kumar, working of all things as interior designers. For almost 20 years, they were hiding right there in plain sight, blending into society and entirely escaping the consequences of what they did back in Kerala.
But of course, the facade finally crumbled. With the AI officially identifying Rajesh over in Puducherry, investigators used his location to trace the whereabouts of his co-conspirator, DeVille. And on January 4th, 2025, the hammer finally fell. The Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, moved in and officially arrested both men in Puducherry. 19 long years after fleeing that bloody scene in Anchal town, the fugitive army personnel, those so-called interior designers, were finally put in handcuffs. Justice delayed, but finally delivered. This breakthrough is just an incredible testament to the relentless pursuit of the truth. Now, obviously, it can't erase the unimaginable pain that Santama has had to endure for 19 years. It doesn't bring back Ranjini, it doesn't bring back those twin girls, but this arrest does bring a profound, long overdue sense of closure to a grieving mother and to an entire community that never, ever forgot about them. It proves that no matter how much time passes or how deep a criminal tries to bury their past, the arc of the moral universe, aided by the sheer, undeniable power of modern technology, still bends toward justice.
Which leaves us with this final, really thrilling thought to consider. If an AI algorithm can take an old 2006 photograph, artificially age it by 2 whole decades, and then scan the entire internet to find a 90% match on a random wedding photo in a completely different state, what else is possible? Law enforcement agencies all around the world are currently sitting on thousands, maybe millions, of cold case files. As this technology becomes sharper and as it gets more widely adopted by police departments, we really have to ask what other long-forgotten mysteries are about to be blown wide open. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. It really is a brave new world out there, and I absolutely cannot wait to explore it with you next time.